Yes.
Okay, great. Um, I promised you that this would not be a virtual meeting, but I had to go back on my promise because of construction. It's for a good reason, and assuming that we don't have a blow up in the pandemic in the next 30 days, I fully expect to see you all in the brand spanking newly renovated Attleboro Public Library. So this is a recorded meeting. Anything you say is recorded for eternity and posted on the city's website. It's an open meeting being conducted by remote participation. There are no members gathering physically. Members of the public may attend. They can attend by accessing the link that was published in the meeting notice. And as I said, a recording will be posted on the city website. I will call the roll, or I will note who I see present. I see Cynthia Lawrence. I see Judy Lusk. I see Tricia Svensson. I see Toby Reed. I see Beth Gould, Diane Mangiarati. David Pierce will be joining later, and as will Mahesh. And I am Charlie Oliver, president of the board.
Charlie, I'm sorry to interrupt. I misspoke. Joseph is here.
Joseph, excuse
Joseph
me,
and I
Joseph, I
spend
saw
so
you
much
right
time
there.
together. I don't include him as a guest. I apologize, Joseph.
You're right, he doesn't look like a guest to me either, but there he is. Okay. So, let's get into the agenda. Are there any other anticipated guests from staff?
No.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I'd like you to review the minutes from June 9th, our last meeting. I will give you 2 minutes to do so, and let me know when you're done. If anyone would like more time, please raise your hand. Okay. Seeing none, Diane, are you all set?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any corrections, additions, or edits to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will accept them as presented. The minutes are accepted as presented. We don't need to vote. I'm going to skip over the treasurer's report for the moment. Hopefully Mahesh will be here in a few minutes. If he's not here after Amy's report, I will give you a good summation of the treasurer's report. I told Amy not to sit down and write a report. I told her jot some notes and speak from her notes. Amy has been besieged with all kinds of things. She and Joseph and the whole staff, but particularly Amy, have really been going through a really challenging time. It's coming at them from all directions. So I didn't want her wasting time writing a report that she could write in a quiet moment sometime later. And so Amy, go ahead, and I will, incidentally, Amy, I will give a report on the status of the building project and the tech project, so you can save your breath a little bit on those.
Thank you. So I had high hopes in the summer that we would start off the school year with these very formal reports, and the department heads have been doing a great job of sending me more detailed statistics and write-ups. And here we are writing from my notes. But I did start, I have a Google Doc running things of note. Back in June, the budget passed with flying colors. So that was good news. We started a new safety committee. This is a union thing. Joseph and I met with 2 staff members of the safety committee. We meet roughly every 6 to 8 weeks just to go over any concerns they have, see how we can address things from that perspective. We also went to the school committee meeting, myself and a bunch of the Neighbors in Dialogue organizers, because there was the big brouhaha on CRT. So then that the library was brought into a library blog post with anti-racism resources from last summer, the previous summer, was shared around the community saying that it was the school's summer reading list, which is obviously not true. So that's how we got brought into it. And obviously we share resources on any topic that the community is interested in. And at the time, we were getting lots of requests on anti-racism work because people were horrified by George Floyd's murder. So that's a short story. And then in July, some of that, the meeting, the letter that went out in our newsletter from myself and Charlie got some attention nationally. And we were contacted by the American Library Association, by the Office of Information Freedom, and just they wanted to meet with us to make sure that we were okay and that we felt supported in our stance, that we provide information to everyone, which we do, which is what we do. But Charlie and I had some good conversations with those folks, and they've offered to do training on things going forward. Things like information literacy and what libraries actually do to provide resources to the whole community. That's really the biggest part of July. I also noted that I'm doing a security training thing with the city on cybersecurity, which really just seems silly at this point. In August, you know, we thought we were going to wind up building renovations. We're working away. Our library aide, Paul, came back. He had been gone since the holidays for various reasons, but he is back in action, working 15 hours a week or so. And we got several computer donations from Sensata, a round of desktop computers and also a round of 12 laptop computers. And these are going to be replacing staff and public the desktops will replace the oldest staff and public computers. And then the laptops, some will go to staff and some will be available for use for workshops and things like that. So you'll be hearing about that more in the future. And then last night, the city's budget committee met and approved roughly $33,000 to replace the servers that we have. MIS office called them junk. They no longer suit our needs. We can't update them. So we're going to replace 13 machines that are currently living in their own room on the 4th floor with 2 stackable servers that will belong in a rack on the 2nd floor. And it's going to free up an entire meeting room on the 4th floor. It's the one that mirrors the trustee room where we would normally meet. There's some good news there. As we talked about before the meeting started, the big read kicked off last week with a great poetry reading and display of student work, some poetry activities in the park. Programs have been virtual and fairly well attended for what they are at this time in the world. We've talked to the staff to let them know that as we reopen, currently scheduled for September 27th, our expectation is that programs will be minimal and start off virtually. There's too many questions right now about will people come? How do we do hybrid? All those things. So if they can't be held outside, because Crystal has a weekly story time outside, They did a tie-dye, family tie-dye event in the park today. The reading to the dogs work really well outside, and Crystal's committed. She's like, I'll do this till November if we don't get snow. And then the things that have gone well virtually, they do one family night a month virtually. They do categories, they do a trivia night, bingo. They'll keep that up. And then our book clubs and genealogy clubs will remain as they have been. We have a lot to do. We haven't been open since mid-May. So having patrons in the building is just going to be a huge adjustment for everyone. Which brings me to our staffing situation. Katie Butler, our amazing circulation supervisor, announced that today is her last day because she's about to have a baby. She's on the schedule to be induced tomorrow morning. That may get pushed off, so she is going to wait at home until she gets that call. So Katie will be out until mid-December. Elise LaForge, our reader services librarian, told us last week that her last day will be next Friday, the 24th. She is leaving to she's going to the Avon Public Library, which was her first library job. And Carol is retiring, so her last day is currently scheduled to be October 1st. She is in a lot of pain. We don't know if she's going to make it till October 1st. She's got a lot going on. So that's 3 very key full-time staff members, 2 of whom are reference staff, and the reference desk can only be staffed by a certain number of people. Like they have to be have to have master's degrees. It's a very small pool, and Joseph and I are 2 of those people, but Joseph will essentially be Katie in addition to himself while Katie is out, and I will essentially be Carol until Carol's replacement is found and hired. We were given over 100 resumes to review for Carol's position. So we're narrowing them down now, and we have not yet posted Elise's job. There's been so many other things going on, but we're working on that with personnel. But as we say regularly, they're amazing. They're just doing amazing things with this E-rate project. They've had to work a new software for the library system. It's called Workflows, but they've been using Workflows Lite, which the emails are flying every day. This shortcut doesn't work. You have to use this workaround every day. I'm sure there's cursing happening when I'm not around, but they've just done it and done it so well, and answered all the patron questions and done curbside, and really, we've been talking about this closure for weeks now, but when we literally were given 20 minutes notice, like they thought the machines were just being delivered, but it turns out they sent the crew, and if they didn't start now, they didn't know when they would get it done, and they just started ripping up the sidewalk. And the staff just said, okay, here's another thing that it'll be fine. We've been practicing for this. So, that is the really quick and dirty thing. Summer reading, great. We did some outreach. Rotary is very excited about working with us on early literacy, and Jeff Nelson, their new president, is ready to go. He's ready to get us a bookmobile. So we're going to get the mayor's approval with that first. So a lot of good projects in the works. Toby brought some new educators from the public school system over that Joseph and the children's staff talked to. Stephanie Purchase from Hyman Fine, the Title I teacher there, is working with us on a pilot project to bring library books to the schools for the kids to check out there and use in the schools to try to get some of those families that are not able to come here. And then finally, Neighbors in Dialogue had a planning meeting last week, and we are ready. The end of October 27th, we're going to do our first Neighbors in Dialogue of the school year, and it is going to have a theme of voting rights, voter suppression, and hopefully get people excited about the election the following week. So everyone is in there. And again, this really is a very quick report. And I do welcome your questions, and maybe when things quiet down and you can actually stop in the library, we can talk more about things, but I do welcome emails and whatnot to learn more about the things that I'm talking about in these meetings.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for Amy? A lot going on. I was actually shocked. I sat down this afternoon and went through all of the emails between Amy and me and Carrie and Joseph since our last board meeting. And, you know, if I could sell it by the pound, I'd be a rich man. There was just tons of communication flying back and forth on every conceivable subject. So it's been a busy summer. But let me just piggyback on Amy's comments and tell you about the status of the building. As of yesterday's building team weekly meeting, the legal term, I guess, is substantial completion. That is still scheduled for September 30th. So we're really close, folks. That doesn't mean that every last thing will be done. There will be a few odds and ends lingering, but substantial completion means that we can resume normal operations. And so we're really getting close. And we need to keep our eye on the goal, and we're nearly there. We're coming around, I can't remember my streets for the end of the Boston Marathon, but we're coming around the last turn and we can see the tape across the road. The sidewalk demo, as Amy said, is suddenly happening, and it will be all set probably sometime middle to late next week. Everything should be able to be walked upon. Some unfinished items would be the front door installation, and that's a matter of supply issues, not being able to get a certain mechanical component that's needed to finish that job off. There's in the elevator, there's that lockout for the fourth floor that we have to bypass well, some of you might not even have seen the trustee's room at this point. But to get up to the fourth floor, you have to get somebody to unlock the elevator and let you get all the way up there. So that was omitted when they upgraded the elevator. It's in the works. Might not be on time. We're not sure when it'll be installed, but otherwise the elevator is quite functional. New window replacements were delayed due to supply chain shortages, but they're going like crazy. They may be done in time, but there may be a few windows still left to pop out and replace. There is some cracking in the walls in the marble room that needs to be repaired and painted. There was a delay in getting the final quote, and we also had to get a little extra money out of the budget in order to complete that job. That might not be done, but it may. There was a handrail for the new sidewalk, which seems to be bouncing around between some of the players, and we're not sure that will be installed in time, but it might be. But other than that, all the heads have gotten together and started creating punch lists of all the little odds and ends that need to be taken care of before everybody's gone. That's progress. That's a wrap-up kind of a task. There is some haggling at the city level over remaining expenditures and potential change orders for certain items of work that involves the city auditor and the budget director and the project manager. So that's a front burner item. It's a very tense moment there with those people to get this resolved, but I don't think it will have major impact on anything that we're looking at here. So we're almost there, folks. Hang in there. On the tech lab project, the building contractors for the renovation submitted a bill for nearly $12,000 for work that they performed to assist with wiring for the tech project and stuff that was largely outside the scope of the renovation project. I must say that the contractors were very cooperative working with the technology folks, that had to get their job done. And so everybody worked pretty well together, but there was some costs involved in that, a lot of drilling of holes and replastering. So all of a sudden we're faced with about a $12,000 expenditure. The city stepped up and the budget director said, well, I can probably scratch together most of that for you. So the city has offered to pay about $7,500 of that total. And the balance would come out of our state aid funds. So there's no impact on our trust fund budget. And thanks to city government for helping out with this little glitch. Installation of all the components is complete. I'm not sure if the last access point is installed in the Balfour room yet, but that may, once the contractors have cleared out of there, we can pop that last access point in place if it's not already there. I'm not sure. So, and everything seems to be working. There's a little bit more configuring of components that has to be done. The fiber optic cable is functioning. We're going to maintain the coaxial cable, the normal cable that we've had for all these years, as a backup for just a couple of months. So we're going to have to eat a little extra expense there, but it's the prudent thing to do, just in case something crashes and we have an unforeseen failure. So that's happening. Amy talked about the city approving the relocation of the server room and replacing all that antiquated equipment that occupies that front office. So again, thanks to the mayor and the city council for taking that on without batting an eyelash. I want to thank the volunteer technology consultant, a fellow named Jack Baptist, who recently retired from Sensata. Jack did essentially the same function that our vendors are doing in setting up all of our technology. So he's the perfect person to step up and be our lead consultant on all of this. He's also the guy that used to be responsible for donating equipment. So he went to work with Sensata and got all this equipment donated. So he's really done a heroic job. The 12 laptops, if I'm reading my notes correctly, just the laptops were valued at about $6,000, I think. They're all in. MIS has the computers in hand and is loading them with the appropriate software and configuring them. We have to pay a little out of pocket for some additional software licenses on several machines. It's about $675, and we've managed to get that into our library budget, the municipal budget. I believe that's covered in that line item. Additional hardware costs for this is new, just getting us this afternoon. Actually, we've got a couple of pieces of equipment that Harbor Networks, our vendor, could not supply because of supply chain issues, and gave us some better equipment. Our consultant is advising us to take that. We need to shell out some money for that. It's going to be about $2,300, and it's outside of the scope, at least partially, if not totally, outside of the scope of the E-rate approvals that we got. So we're going to have to come up with some cash for that. Amy and I are currently working on where we're going to get that money from, but we'll get it. And our consultant says, get it. It's the right thing. We should have it. So it's very fortuitous for us that we've had a couple of windfall state aid years where we got paid the maximum amount of state aid, much more than we would have expected. So we have some extra state aid savings that the city is holding for us. So that's good. Filtering parameters were set up in the firewall. So we will go online with filtering in place, and staff can override the filtering where it is deemed appropriate to do so. So that pushes ahead the item that we've been tabling on SIPA requirements and holding a public hearing. We're going to talk about that later. But that's the status of the building and technology. Are there any questions that anyone has regarding any of this? It's all good news. Okay. This is as good a point as any to give some recognition where it's due, and certainly the entire staff for all the reasons we've already talked about tonight. For coping with constant disruption, constant chaos, we just have the greatest appreciation for what every single staff person has had to put up with and has accomplished. Special shout out to Carrie Sylvia, who inherited the E-rate project management when Chris Johnson left. It all landed in her lap. She's managed it in a stellar fashion. And so she deserves a great amount of appreciation from us. I've mentioned Jack Baptist, who we can't thank enough. And Amy, as I've mentioned, who has really had it coming at her relentlessly. So, but also the city of Attleboro, the municipal government, for being so supportive. I mean, from the project manager to the mayor to the council to the budget director, everybody has been saying, let's get it done right, let's fix it now, let's not nickel and dime things that are going to come back to bite us 5 years down the road. It's a beautiful philosophy. We haven't seen that in past projects. They've agreed to absorb excess technology expenses that we've run into. They've, with the server room, there's another project they eagerly took on. So our government is working very well on our behalf, and we have to be thrilled for that. So that's all I got. Any questions on any of this?
Shirley, to piggyback on that, with the staffing situations, Joseph and I are talking to City Hall almost every day, like with personnel, like how does this work? How does that work? If we don't have enough staff to keep the building open with these vacancies, like if someone calls in sick, and we've already had 2 families touched by COVID, we have, what do we even do? So they're really working with us to go through our budget and see what payroll is going to look like with new staff members at a lower pay grade, to give us an estimate and give us the go ahead of time. And Jeremy Stoll, the budget administrator, saw me in the office, and he came in and was like, you look like you need stuff. What can we do for you? The accounting office, they have just been so willing to, and you just wait, when the new person comes in, we'll train them on all this. They've just been so fantastic all along. It's been wonderful.
All right, any more comments? I'm going to take over for Mahesh here for what I can do. Couple of things on the financial front. We talked about Carol and all the applicants we have. We did build in an additional, not must have, but would like to have in the job description, and that would be QuickBooks, competency, literacy. We are going to overhaul the accounting system. Mahesh and our accountant and I will carry that burden, and we will work with the incoming person who's replacing Carol over time to gradually switch over to a new way of doing things. We're going to go from a manual bookkeeping system that was done by hand on spreadsheets, and then at the end of the year translated into electronic form by me to submit to the accountant for auditing purposes. We want to do away with all of that. We want to get it online. So that process is underway. I just downloaded QuickBooks today, and hopefully at some point we're going to have the bookkeeping done by the replacement for Carol, and things will be greatly simplified. For example, I think you'll find that bookkeeping will be simpler. The report generation of the reports that we look at every month, it's going to be so much easier to print those and compile those. Auditing is going to be simpler, and it's going to be less costly to us. And we'll be able to integrate the trust fund account with Rockland Trust into all of the bookkeeping. We'll have, for our endowments, we'll have a much clearer accountability for what we spend, what we should spend, and what we actually spend. And it will give us a greater sense in future trust fund budgets as to where we need to punch up a little bit and where we need to cut back a bit. So I've been waiting for that for several years, and I can't wait to see this kick in. So that's happening. We will have a trust fund budget, which has been sent out to you late this afternoon, which we need to approve. Fortunately, it's been a good year, not only for our endowments, but for one of the major remote charitable trusts that pays us twice a year. They've been earning more money, so they're sending us more money. So we had more to spend, and we've been able to bump up the budget substantially. So that's good. We need it. It's going to be an expensive year. Amy told you the municipal budget sailed through in June. I will tell you that we received 3 good-sized checks. Since we last talked, Milford Bliss sent in, that is the outside charitable trust that feeds us twice a year. The semi-annual payment came in June for nearly $7,400. They also do a calculation at the end of each fiscal year to make sure they paid us enough by statute, and they didn't, so they send us another $2,050 as a deficiency payment. And we got a payment from the Marie Scherenza Trust of $3,900 with a note to the effect that we get one more year of this and then it's fully paid out. So that's been a nice little nest egg that we've gotten for the last 3 or 4 years now. I have to make a note to myself for a later discussion. Okay. All right, so let's look at the first thing I want you to look at is the budget. That would be the fiscal year 2022 budget that has actual live numbers in it. It says at the top in red, spent to date 25%. I want you to notice that in the appropriation column, those numbers are not accurate. That reflects last year's appropriation of about $70,000. So in a few moments, we're going to look at the new trust fund budget proposal that you need to vote on, which will be for $77,000. So you see we've had a good 10% bump. So generally, we don't have any questions or discussion on the budget, but it shows you where we are to date using old numbers, and we'll update that for you as soon as we approve the new budget. Everybody clear on what I'm talking about here? Okay. So let us now look at the warrants. Let's look at warrant number 1. Warrant number 1 is a total of $1,116.96. Are there any questions on any items on warrant number 1? Okay, seeing none, we'll pass on to warrant number 2, which is more substantial. That is a total warrant of $17,014.67. Again, have a look at this and let me know if you have any questions on any of these line items. I have a question on line 7. Boston Red Sox, $75. What is that all about?
They had a program with Wally, the mascot, an
Yes.
online program that they shared the cost with several other libraries.
Okay. So it wasn't a seat in the Green Monster. Okay.
Maybe when we're COVID free.
Okay. Anything else that jumps off the page at you?
I just wonder about unique management. We're still using that. How is that doing?
So we're basically just paying the $50 standard fee each month right now because we weren't doing fines or lost things. It's just starting up again. Yeah.
Anything, Brain Fuse, could you remind us what Brain Fuse is about, line 8?
Sure. Brain Fuse is a online tutoring program and for all kids, adults, everything. And we did it. We did it as a trial. We hired them. Like it's an online tool, a database in library jargon that we took on, or the board took on last year as a, hey, look, this seems like a really good thing in the world that we live in. And this was actually a delayed payment from the previous year, if I'm not mistaken. So Carrie has the statistics on it that we can share at the next meeting for when it's time to renew. So it's online, free online tutoring, some of it even live, like you submit your work and a tutor gets back to you with personalized feedback. We've been working with both they have a separate veterans page or version. We work with the schools and the Veterans Office to make sure that they have access and knowledge about the tool.
How's the utilization been?
I am waiting for statistics. Carrie obviously has had her hands full recently, so you're gonna get some delayed reports this month.
Okay. Fair enough. So any more questions on warrant number 2? All right, then, is there anyone who objects to accepting these warrants as presented? Okay, hearing no objections, we will accept the warrants as presented. I believe that it's going to be necessary to transfer the money for these 2 warrants from our endowment account with Rockland Trust in our usual manner. I know the cash was getting a little slim when the Brain Fuse item came up a week or so ago. So are there any objections to transferring the amount of warrant 1 and warrant 2 from Rockland Trust into the checking account? Okay, I will see that that takes place. I don't have a balance on the checking account for you. I was supposed to get that from Mahesh, but I guess we didn't mesh up on that. So can't pass that on. So now I'd like you to look at what Amy sent out when we clarified the meeting time, which is the trust fund budget for $77,000. This was more of an interactive process this year. We had a few unexpected expenses flying in and out over the past couple of months, and Amy and I were able to work those pretty much into the entire budget here. So I'm satisfied with it. I think Amy is satisfied with it. Are there any questions or concerns?
Charlie, I would say that the biggest change is the computer upgrade line, the computer line, the $4,000. That last year, that was a hotspot line item, and that's what we used to purchase hotspots with. this year, we, as part of, I'm not going to use the right acronym, but as part of funding in the country, the state received hotspots. Like, they use the money to buy their own hotspots, and then they are lending them to libraries across the state. And I think, Joseph, we got 15. And so some will be here with us. Anyways, we didn't have to spend the money, but we do need to spend money on the memory and the, thank you, Joseph, ARPA funds. We need to, on memory for the new computers, for some software for the computers, things like that. So we bumped that line item up, and it's computer upgrades versus hotspots, because we don't need to spend the other technology money. And then collection funds were, a lot of the collection funds that the trust provides were bumped up an appropriate percentage based on the percentage that the total budget went up. Is that, I think, Charlie, I think you and I were going to talk about that, or talked about that in emails, but those are my big takeaways from the difference from last year.
I think that's a good summation. So, any comments, questions? Then I will, if I hear no objections, I will accept this as presented, and this will be our trust fund budget going forward, and we will rework the live budget that was sent out to you earlier with actual correct appropriations. Okay, we'll accept that. Okay, what's next? Let's move on to unfinished business. Judy or Diane, do either of you want to say anything about the performance review process?
Well, I don't know if Judy does, or we can both perhaps chime in. We have a process where you all received the evaluation. Judy was kind enough to send that to everyone. And we're hoping that you'll maybe have, we were planning to give it out in person, but we couldn't tonight. So we're hoping that you can maybe make a copy, keep it in your folder when you come to meetings, and that is an evaluation that you will use all through the year. And then in the end of the year, we're thinking May, you, Charlie, would receive from each trustee and from Amy their evaluation, like what the numbers are, the 1, 2, 3, and how they felt it would be. So that would take place in May, and then in June we would be able to go over what you have compiled. And Judy, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, this process was adopted from the Sandwich Board of Trustees process. I emailed, or I put it in a message, just the top part. I realized I probably should have done the whole page. There was also something from the American Library Association, which states in their handbook, using both the quantifiable measures of library performance, such as circulation statistics, visits per year, etc., the perceptions of board members, and the negotiated goal areas from the previous year, the board or its committee has a very good basis for discussion and evaluation. And so we tweaked a few things from the Sandwich Board of Trustees because that was available to us, just time-wise. I mean, some of the things they say chairperson, we say president. It's just not much of anything. And so somebody had asked about the process, and this is what was developed.
Okay, thank you. Are we needing a vote on this process? Have we, my memory is failing me here. Have we already voted to approve this process?
I don't believe we had any votes. No, we volunteered to be a committee to form it, and then we reported back, but that's about as far as,
Okay.
we didn't really have a vote. I don't know if it's necessary or if you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know. If it's necessary, or if you.
Are we needing a vote on this process? Have we already voted to approve this process?
I don't believe we had any votes. No, we didn't really have a vote. I don't know if it's necessary or if you.
Well, I think it would be a good idea to have a vote in the
Okay.
minutes, that we now have a process. And I appreciate the work that you did on putting that together. You and Beth and Diane, much appreciated. And so now we need to put it into effect. May I have a motion to approve the director's review process as presented?
So
So
moved.
moved.
A second. Anyone have any further discussion?
I just have one question. As far as the evaluation goes, when we do this, there are a lot of things in it about relationship with the staff and what's done with the staff. Do we not get any input from staff or from, like, say, the Friends, or do we just get information from the director on what's happening there? Or I guess I'm a little confused about that.
Yes, it's from the director. There was quite a bit of information from other resources, and they did not think it was in the best interest of the staff and the whole feeling in the library to get information from the staff. They did not advise that.
Well, I guess I'm supposing too that if there is a problem, the staff is going to get in touch with us. If
Perhaps, yeah.
if that was necessary, so
Mhm.
that would be
Yeah.
how we would get input from them.
Mm.
And then,
I think
Yeah.
it's also,
but nothing formal from the Friends either.
No.
it's also incumbent upon the president, who is more involved on a day-to-day basis with staff,
Mhm.
to glean
Right.
any kind of staff relation issues that may be present.
I mean, we are the government board that our role is to evaluate our director. And that's one of our major, I think that's one of the things, one of our major jobs.
Yeah,
As-
but I can see that, but I feel like if I have to fill out this form and say what her relationship, the director's relationship is with the staff, and I don't know that I'm really clear on that. I mean, I know she's doing a great job, but it's like, what do I see where I could truly evaluate that? I mean, are we free to just skip some of these if we don't feel comfortable in evaluating something like that?
Well, we didn't discuss that, but I suppose if you can't
I
answer it,
suppose, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, that there are some things you won't be able to answer. And so
Mhm.
don't
I think
chime in
that-
on those if you can't give an intelligent answer.
Well, I do remember what we talked about. There's like three different categories on here related to staff. The first one, managing staff, development of staff, and utilization of staff.
Right.
And I believe what we had talked about as far as the utilization and the development of the staff is a lot of that comes from Amy's reports. She talked about utilizing staff. I mean, now she has no staff. So now what does she do? And how she's working with the city. I actually made some notes about that. She's handling the problem. So that's the utilization of staff in my mind. In development of staff, Amy will often mention professional developments that staff do. They have a professional, a day for professional development. I would make notes of those things. As far as managing staff, this past year or so has been an example of how the staff has been managed. We've kind of seen it with our own eyes, given the situation, which hopefully things get back to normal, but it's been exceptional the past year and a half. And I think that we can make a judgment at this point on the past year of what's been going on. So in my mind, and we talked about this in our meeting a bit, that's how I relate the staff in Amy's job and evaluating her based on those things.
I think we also have a sense when you walk in the library or you're in the community, you have a sense whether things are going smoothly or if there's trouble. And I think that that's just one thing you can be alerted to, I suppose. But other than that, of course, we're not in the library day to day to see the operations.
Can I assume, Amy, that the staff also have yearly review processes that they undergo? And
Yeah.
yep, go ahead, sorry, yep.
Yes, and I was thinking, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking, like, I'm telling staff, because the staff hate those process, right? They hate to do it. And a lot of them. And so we've really talked about, like, but I want feedback. Like, I want, it's easy to say, oh, you're doing a great job, but if folks have questions, I want to give a comfortable opportunity to question things. And I will bring up with staff the fact that they can come to the board with concerns and things. I mean, it's not happened it'll be almost 20 years here. Like, I've never heard anything other than the usual, man, it's snowing really hard. We should go home now. Why are we still here? Like, those are just normal. So I don't know what they would do, really. I mean, I guess they would talk to Joseph first. And I do feel like, for me as the current director and Charlie as the current president, like, we talk, like, I'm very transparent about, hey, we're having an issue right here. This is my experience. Like, this is my understanding of what's going on. Because I don't ever want someone, like, out in the community saying, wow, the library's terrible. Like, I want to address those things. But I will let them know that this is they will see the evaluation form that I fill out, because I see theirs.
Yeah.
I can think of, over the last 3 months, a situation or two that I have been involved in. Not in a hands-on way, but certainly, digging into the situation and understanding what's happening. And in one case, speaking to an individual. So I think it's practical to assume that whoever is president is going to have some measure of insight beyond what the ordinary board member would have. So, that makes sense?
I think if you really truly can't answer the question, we would leave it blank. And then that would be, when you see that, you'd say, well, I think, we need to clear up some things. Maybe there's some misunderstanding. If someone can't respond to that particular bullet.
Okay, any more discussion? Well, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone object to the motion? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I will say that the motion is carried unanimously. All right, so let's move on to the long-range plan. What's the status of the long-range plan at this point in the midst of chaos?
So we have a really drafty draft that Joseph has not even seen yet. The due date is October. We've got a little bit of room. I have the contact at the MBLC to kind of talk this out with them. I will say that the long-range plan is very important, and we're working on it between crisis mode. But it's not like some other state mandated things. Like, if you don't have a strategic plan or long-range plan in place, you can't apply for certain grants. And if you're applying for a grant, you are starting a large new project. So again, this is worst case scenario, which I don't think we'll get there. If we don't get it done in time, we won't get to apply for grants for a few months. And I feel like we can live with that. We've got a lot of good projects in the works. And I can't imagine how we would start something brand new with so many new people on staff and what we're into. So, but we are chugging away. and you'll see the draft before it gets submitted.
Okay, and this is going to become kind of a permanent item on the agenda going forward.
Yep.
Any questions on that? Okay. Let's see, farmer's market, I see under unfinished business. We did attend the farmer's market on one Saturday, is that correct? You want to elaborate on that a little?
Joseph did the last farmer's market, some volunteers, Eileen Straminsky and Maureen Canner, I know,
I did
for sure. And you were there, Diane, right?
Mhm.
So we have another one coming up, October 16th, at the very end, at the tail end of the big read. And I will be at that one. And I know last time we just did this great big call for volunteers and got wonderful response. So I will we'll do a little more targeted this time. And I'll reach out to you in emails. If anyone has a burning desire to be with us at the farmers market on the 16th, please reach out. And David, David, you were first on my list because I know you tried last time. So you in. You know, and it's just an opportunity we'll be with the Attleboro Land Trust, who is a good partner. And it's just talking to the community and hearing their thoughts and talking about our programs. And it's wonderful, as long as the weather's good. So, and if you're a farmer's market shopper, please come by and say hello.
All right. Okay. I don't want to start anything new, but the next thing on the agenda is that we need to have a celebration. The community kind of expects it of us, and we want to have one for the sake of all the participants who made these two beautiful projects come to fruition in a beautiful way. So. Is there any progress so far on talking about this, sitting down with players to hatch a plan on this, Amy? And if you'd said no, that's an okay answer with me.
No, we've got, someone told me Marion Volterra was very interested in working with us. If I gather my notes, there are a handful of people who are, you know, excited to be part of this. I know Mahesh feels like we should do sort of a small series of events to be able to do something in the afternoon, something in the evening, something on the weekend, so that we can touch more people. And I am all for that. I just want to keep it on the agenda because it will happen. But first the project has to finish.
I think maybe one of the first things to do, which will motivate getting it organized, is to decide when it should happen. October is a big read month. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll be, you know, getting situated once again in our new digs, and we have a few personnel issues to work out, which will really be a critical speed bump to get over. So it's hard to know when to celebrate it. You don't want to let it go too long, and we don't want to step on other things that are in the works already. So any thoughts on that?
Would there be a particular deadline? Like if the project was completed October 1st, would we say that it should be no later than like 3 months, 6 months? Is there a customary guideline here?
We haven't done this in a lot of years, so customary.
Okay. Great.
As you were talking, Charlie, oh, go ahead, Diane.
No, I was just going to say, are we concerned about COVID at all too, in gathering? That always runs through my mind now, unfortunately.
One of the things I was thinking about is whether we could work with double AC, you know, how do you say it right? The television station, and perhaps have, in the event of COVID, a video, kind of a documentary on what's changed, what's new, a tour through the building, professionally produced that we could show on television and send out links to.
Yeah.
It might be a good idea regardless. I'm sure that they would have an interest in putting something together, but I hate to think that we might have to shut down due to COVID, but it certainly is a possibility. So, that said, I know a lot of organizations that are making their plans, like music groups that I'm associated with. We're all planning to do a concert. We don't know if it'll actually happen. We're working on them and hoping that we can pull them off, but we have to have an alternative plan.
Museum is having their auction. I think it's virtual too. The annual.
We actually the board had a meeting last night, Diane, and they were set to have 2 salons like on Friday nights to have people come in for food and drink and to see the art in person beforehand. And they made the decision to not have food and drink. And they're finalizing the plans. It'll just be like an open gallery to come and see the art and see your friends. Because of you can't enforce mask. It's hard for staff. I can't imagine our staff telling people to put masks on in addition to people. So it's tricky. That's why I'm hearing smaller events. And as Charlie was talking, I was like, well, maybe like during Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving, what a wonderful time of year to thank the community for supporting the library. But I think it would have to be a series of smaller events, which takes away from our big celebration. It's a lot to think about, but if you all kind of weigh the pros and cons of maybe we do in 2021, perhaps 2022, maybe we do have to do a virtual and live with the video for now and do smaller tours, or you have to sign up for ahead of time, or a special family story time, or a special poetry reading, or do it that way. We'll put our thinking caps on.
I'm assuming that one of the prime, what the main objective here would be to get people in the building. I mean, it would be silly to have even a small celebration and hold it in the parking lot.
Right. Yeah.
So that's an objective. I mean, that's sort of a pretty good metric for us to work from, is whatever we do, we want to make sure that it can happen in the building.
I do love that idea, Charlie, of a video of, showing it. I mean, that would open it to more people that might not, be going to the library at all. I mean, everybody would get to see it that way. It would be open to everyone. I love that idea.
Yep.
And that doesn't have to wait either. That could be something that could be worked on now. Well, not right, maybe once we're done.
Yeah, not right now.
Not right now, but once we're done, so we wouldn't have to wait on that at all.
But that could be the placeholder, right? Like that could be the, hey, the project is
Right.
finished, look at it. And then if we have to do it in the spring and maybe have some people outside, I mean, again, maybe this is all over by then, and here's 20 people on a tour and sort of sign up for times or however, or it's all open. I see.
Yeah, I was thinking like how the Industrial Museum does it every Thursday, the Thursday nights or whatever that they have, and you get smaller groups that way, and
Yep.
you could run the same program repeatedly, over a number of times. Again, not a big celebration, but at least some way of getting people in there and showing them what's happened.
Well, I think we need to convene interested parties who are willing to plan an event. Stakeholders that I can think of would be the board, the Friends. I know that city government would like to have a hand in this. I believe that our project manager and our architect would both like to have a hand in it, although I don't know whether we get them sitting around a table to discuss it. But they really want to have a celebration. Interesting, the architect is thinking of submitting this project to, I can't tell you the name of the organization that evaluates historic restoration projects. And she thinks that this project would have some real attributes that might win an award. So she wants to be involved. Anyone else you can think of?
Would the schools, the public schools, be involved in any way?
We could certainly
Yeah. Mhm.
attempt to do that. Other stakeholders?
We would certainly invite all of the partners. We have that long list of partners from the Big Read and other things. I don't know if they would want to necessarily plan it, but we certainly could invite them and certainly pick their brains for successful celebrations they've had in the community.
Okay. All right, well, I guess the only thing to do at this point is to say that by the next time we convene, we will have reached out to some of these people. Any suggestions that you have along the way, pass them on by email to either me or Amy. And we will find a way to start to plan this thing. So that next time we have a meeting, hold our feet to the fire and say, what are you doing on a celebration? Sound like a fair approach? Okay. All right, let's move on to new business. I have one item of new business which should have been on the agenda and I didn't think to put it on there. And that is that we've been tabling a discussion on the SIPA filtering issue for several months consecutively. Now that we have a new system up and running that E-Rate has paid for, we have to have some kind of a public forum on filtering. And I don't think that will be difficult to put together. I think it can be done virtually if it's impractical to have a gathering in the library itself. I'm not convinced that we'd have a whole lot of participation. I don't think it's something that should be threatening or onerous to us, but we need to be able to say by the anniversary of our approval date, I believe, which is either late February, early March, we need to have accomplished this. So we can tell the E-Rate folks that we did it. I would like to think that we could probably set it for sometime in January. I'll be happy to take the lead on that. If anybody wants to be involved, let me know. But we'll get it set up. I don't think it will require a whole lot of organizing. But we'll accomplish that. So next thing, you should hold my feet to the fire at the next meeting to make sure we have a date and a plan in place and a format for the meeting. So I need to go back and dig out the regulations and see how we should structure it. But I will do so. Any comments on that? Any other items of new business?
Charlie,
Yes.
right before. Did you all see your email from the mayor about the webinar that's going to take place on Saturday? It's out of the Office of the Inspector General, and the topics are fiduciary duties and responsibilities, the open meeting law, public records law, and managing successful meetings. And Mayor Haru said that if we're interested, to let him know, the city will pay the $15 fee for anyone who wants to participate, of 9 to 12 on Saturday. He sent that out a couple of days ago. I don't know. You know.
Thanks. Thank you for bringing that up. You're right. It's probably a good thing for us to do. I should join it. Anybody else? Diane, you want to jump on?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to.
Okay. Anyone else interested in doing so? All right. Well, we will report back to you then. And I need to remind myself to sign up. Thanks. Any other items of new business? Okay. Well, I thank you. Sorry for the confusion. It's really been a very hectic week so far, so please excuse any of the missteps that happened in getting this meeting off the ground. Next meeting should be on the normal date at the normal time and in the normal place, inside the library on the 4th floor.
So October 13th at 6 p.m. I have it written down in multiple places.
There you go.
Well, that'd be fun.
Yes, it'll be good. And just before we go, I just shout out to Joseph. He's been a trooper, man. He is just like jumped into everything, both feet. And Joseph, I couldn't do it without you. Like the good and the bad, it's been really great having a partner.
It's been great to have somebody who can jump right in, as you did, in so many ways, and it's very much appreciated. Okay, well, I have no more business for you. I did not know whether we might have some visitors tonight. I was planning to allow 15 minutes in the beginning of the meeting for any public participants who wanted to say something. But I guess that did not take place. So in the future, if it does, I think that's the thing to do. The Attorney General advises us to allow the public to speak out if they have something they need to talk about. But it does not permit them to disrupt our meeting or to interfere with business that we need to take on. So, but we'll be prepared to do that if anything should come up regarding our kerfuffle over critical race theory. Hopefully it has died down. There's no there, as somebody once said. Maybe I shouldn't have used those words. But anyway, we'll be prepared should it happen, and if it means that we have to have some kind of a public discussion, we'll arrange to do so. Okay, folks, I'm done. Have a good evening. Thank you for your participation as always, and glad we're all back to work again.
Thank you.
Night.
Yeah.
Good night.